else can, when no one else will, God says, I've got the ability and I will be a present help for you in the midst of your trouble. And you know, we all know this to be true. Trouble comes in a lot of different forms and shapes and sizes, doesn't it? But there's no trouble that we'll ever encounter that God can't handle and help us in the midst of it. So there's some glorious ability, and that's why I said, hey, let the earth be removed, let the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, let the waters thereof roar and be troubled. Though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof, we can stop and pause, Selah, and consider none of this affects the God who possesses glorious ability. And he still does tonight. So there's verse 1, 2, and 3. Then we get to verse 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. That's our second thought. Let's read them. He says, there's a river, the streams whereof shall make glad the city of God. So it's a stream, it's a river that's feeding, if you will, the great city of Jerusalem, the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. And where do we find God? Right in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her, and that right early. Let the heathen rage. And they did. The heathen raged. The kingdoms were moved. But yet, what happens? God uttered his voice, and the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. Pause. Stop. And consider not only God's glorious ability, but God's glorious authority. Let me tell you, when God speaks, people do listen. You say, no, wait a minute. I've known a lot of people that didn't listen. Well, I should put it this way. When God speaks and he utters his voice to do something, people do listen, and they do respond, and they do react. It may be in a positive way. It may be in a negative way. But God is the one who has the authority over all. He has an authority that he could take the city of Jerusalem, place it on a hill, but yet he can what? Have a glorious river running through it. The streams that would nourish and enable the inhabitants of that city to what? Be able to prosper and move forward. That's God's authority. Only God can do that. Such authority. This river, the streams whereof shall make glad. Boy, it was a city of rejoicing. It was a city where there was celebration. There was a city known for its worship of God. Why? Because of God's great and glorious authority there. I like a place where God shows himself, don't you? That's what makes this place here special. You know, I realize that, you know, Brother John, you correct me if I'm wrong here, but I would assume that this building is basically built of the same materials that you build a lot of other places, houses and other type buildings. I mean, it's made out of the same type components, correct? But yet is this place not very special? But it's not special because of what it's made out of. I'm not even so sure that it's special because of who comes into it. I don't feel very special a lot of times. Although we are the Lord's people, amen, and we are somebody going somewhere. But I believe the reason that we have a special place here is simply because of the same thing was said of Israel. The Lord of hosts is with us. The holy God of heaven is in the midst of her. Verse number 5, she shall not be moved. Aren't you glad we have a place where God at times is pleased to let us know that this is his house, and the God of the house shows up and sometimes shows out, doesn't he? And shows his authority. God has the authority tonight to do what's needed in your life and mine. As I bowed here just a moment ago and I began to recall those things that were mentioned in this auditorium regarding prayer, my heart was warmed with the Lord's presence as I knew I was not appealing to someone who couldn't do anything about it. No, as I bowed here, I knew that I was talking to the one that can do what people consider to be impossible. That which is impossible with man is never impossible with the God who possesses glorious authority over all. And so let me put it this way. Sometimes we see the things we face as big obstacles, don't we? But let me tell you, we need to stop and consider, Selah. Think about this. God's bigger than any obstacle any of us will ever encounter. And what does God do with obstacles? He moves them out of his way. Why? Because he's got the authority to do so. This is the verse that I'm really after because I love it. Verse number 5 does say that he's in the midst of her, that is Jerusalem. He's in the midst of this place, our place of worship. It shall not be moved. God shall help her, and that right early. Aren't you glad God's still in the business of helping us? Here tonight I came to get help, and I believe that because of his glorious authority, God can help me and help you with anything that we may encounter. But here's the proof of it. Let the heathen rage, and they do, don't they? Don't the heathen still rage? Aren't there still some voices out there? Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Let them rage, and the kingdoms be moved. But God uttered his voice. When God spoke, it was all dealt with, and the earth melted. We need to remind ourselves of verse 7. As God was with the nation of Israel, so he's with all of us tonight. He's with us collectively. But when we leave this building individually, he's with all of us as his children. And his authority goes with us. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. Pause. Stop. And consider the God who has glorious ability and the God who has glorious authority. But number 3, look at what he says. Come in verse 8. Behold, that's another good word. That is to arrest our attention. Take notice. Don't let it slip your attention. What are we to behold? What are we to give our attention to? Come, behold the what? Works of the Lord. What about his glorious activity? I'm telling you what, when God does something, he does it right, doesn't he? Have you ever known God to do a work and it not be the right work? It's the right work because of his glorious activity. Come, behold the works of the Lord, what desolations he hath made in the earth. Don't be fooled by that word desolations. A lot of times when we see that word or hear that word desolation, we think of it in its negative form, which we can, that God has laid something to waste, but it's much more than that. It's just, if you will, where God has left his handprint. Where God has done something and it's so obvious to those looking on, you have to stand back and say, look at what God has done. Brother Gary, can I just, McCarter. I love to say Brother Gary, and 2 of them look at me. I don't normally get that kind of attention, but I do here. Would you say that what you just came through, that it's so obvious? Look at what God has done in your life. Just recently with this healing. And that's what he's talking about. These great, just behold, this glorious activity. If we see God save someone, is it not obvious that only God could do that? That's his work. I love it when people talk to me and they want to talk to me about, let me tell you about this work that the Lord's done in my life. Let me tell you about this work that the Lord's done in my family. Let me tell you about this work that the Lord's done here or there. I love that because that's what the Bible's saying. Take a look. We get our eyes on so many other things, but he says, hey, would you look away from all that and just behold, take notice. Give your full attention to the works of the Lord and the great desolations across the earth. Those things that bear his mark. That it's quite obvious that God's come through here and God's done this. Well, I thought about the Israelites since this is about the nation of Israel. Do you think there was any question? Well, I know there wasn't. Moses came in there and said, God's brought me your way, and he's going to deliver you now. After all these years of Egyptian bondage, it's time for us to pull up and get out of here. He's got a land of Canaan, land of milk and honey flowing that he's going to take us to. And so, boy, they all left out of there. And we know the story, how they crossed the Red Sea, got into the wilderness. Then they come to the Canaan's land, and they begin to fight those battles, and they encounter a little woman by the name of Rahab. And you know what Rahab said? She said, every fella in this place is shaking in their boots because they heard what your God did where? Back in Egypt. It was so obvious, God's activity there in Egypt, there was no denying it. They didn't deliver themselves. God brought them out. Well, that's just one. I'm glad this evening there's some things in my life that are considered to be the works of God. And I'm glad they can be beheld. And we can rejoice, and you can rejoice, and I can rejoice in the work that the Lord's done. That's why I believe this statement in verse 10 is so important. He mentions a few things in verse 9. He makes wars to cease unto the end of the earth. He breaks the bow. He cuts the spear in sunder. He burns the chariot in fire. Does that kind of sound like maybe the Israelites' departure out of Egypt and then many of the wars that they fought through the years? But then he says, hey, be still. Just get quiet. Begin to take inventory of the great works that God's performed and know that it's God that's done it. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. Pause. Consider it. What do you think about that? Huh? God is a God of glorious activity. When he chooses to move and do, then nobody's going to stop him. My plans are oftentimes thwarted. How about y'all's? They're put on hold. God's never are. Because he's a God of ability. He's a God of authority. And he's a God of activity. He is still moving in this present hour among people and their lives. So, I like the word Selah. How about y'all? Stop, pause, and consider these great things that are found with the God that we love and serve. Amen? All right, that's a Wednesday evening appetizer. Just enough to give you so you'll maybe, say I'd like to come back Sunday and maybe get a little more. All right? Thank y'all for coming this way. Let's all stand to our feet. Brother Nathan, before we go, would you lead us in a closing word of prayer, please? And then we'll go on our way. Yes. Yes. That's right. Yes. Oh, precious Jesus. Yes. Amen, Brother Nathan. Thank you. Brother Gary, yes. Sure. Right. But a dimension he's never known before, no doubt. Yep. I'm glad God's faithful to do that. More of his work, more of his activity. All right, you're free to go. Go pick that girl up. She's at Bible school. Don't let her walk home all the way. Hey, I cut that short just for you, so get out of here. Go, go, go.